Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson here from ZeldaDungeon.net, and you are watching our video walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. This is the 5th chapter of the walkthrough, which covers the frozen mountains to the north called Snowhead. We're going to go through Goron Village, and at the end of this chapter we're going to enter the Snowhead Temple itself. To start out with, you should play the Song of Time backwards to slow time down to 1/3 that of normal. This will give us the most amount of wiggle room to play. Next, you want to run out into Termina Field and start slashing up the bushes to stock up on bombs and arrows, as well as rupees. Now, in the last chapter, I collected several masks, pieces of heart, and a few upgrades, so if any of those things sound appetizing and you are feeling hungry, you may want to go check that out in the previous chapter and snag some of those with me. Alrighty, so in order to go up Snowhead, we're going to need either bombs or the blast mask. Now, back in Chapter 2, I got the big bomb bag, which is the upgraded one that allows you to carry up to 30 bombs at a time. Now, at the bomb shop in West Clocktown, you can normally only purchase the regular bomb bag, but you can get the big bomb bag by saving the old woman in North Clocktown on the first night at 12 a.m. You go there and you rescue her from Sagan the Thief, who tries to steal her big bomb bags. So then if you successfully save her, then she will bring them to the bomb shop, and you can then purchase them there. So you can buy the big bomb bag for 90 rupees. So if you didn't snag this yet, I recommend you do so, since we were going to get the upgraded biggest bomb bag in Goron Village later on in this chapter, but you're going to have the big bomb bag in order for that to work. So you have to have the level 2 bag in order to get the level 3 bag. Once you're pretty full on arrows and bombs, you want to go down the ramp to the north, and on the side of the ramp itself there's a song. You can face away from this melody and use your ocarina so that you can see the notes at the same time. You can then play the song to earn rupees, though the amount of rupees you actually win depends on how well you play the song. So if you mess up a bunch, then you'll receive less rupees. So here you'll find a potentially new enemy, if you haven't explored much, called a Dodongo. And they can be harmed by slashing their vulnerable tail, but you'll need to back up just after that, because then they'll spin around, potentially hitting you with their tail, and then they'll blow fire at you. So the trick is to hit their tail and then circle around and hit their tail again, repeatedly, but this is quite the lengthy and somewhat dangerous process because they're much larger and more difficult than they were in the previous game, Ocarina of Time. Now, you can toss bombs at them from afar to deal damage, but somewhat of an Easter egg is that you can actually get them to swallow the bombs, which does extra damage. It's incredibly hard to get them to do this, though, so don't be surprised if you can't manage to do it yourself. What you just saw me do took a lot of practice, and re-recording this part several times. So anyway, I recommend just tossing a ton of bombs at them from afar to defeat them. After they die, the bigger Dodongos drop 50 rupees, while the smaller ones drop less. Under one of these giant stone mushrooms, there's a hole in the ground that leads to a piece of heart. I actually got that one back in Chapter 2, but if you haven't done that yet, now would be an excellent time to do this. There's a bomb bag upgrade that we can get in Goron Village later, which I kind of mentioned a moment ago, but we're going to need 200 rupees in order to purchase it. Because of this, I recommend you collect at least 150 before you move on. When you're ready, you want to go up the giant ramp to the far north and approach the big chunks of ice. Tata will fly up to the giant icicle that's hanging above, and you can Z-target it and see her advice if you like. She hints at being able to shoot it twice with your bow and probably break it off, and once she's done talking, you want to do just that. It's a little misleading though, because the cinematic shows it shaking when you hit it the first time, but just shoot it a second time and it will drop down, just like she said. This will break the icy barrier and allow us to access the mountain. So here we have the road to Mountain Village, a pleasant little path of snow and ice that's a bit slippery wherever there isn't crunchy snow to walk on. You'll immediately encounter a new enemy called a blue Tektite. A variation of some sort of this enemy has been in most of the games in the Zelda series actually, and as is also typical, they're kind of frustrating. Now, most people refer to them as spiders, though more accurately I think they look more like land-dwelling crabs that have a bunny complex because they're always hopping around. In this particular game, they'll actually spin towards you when they're on a slippery surface, and luckily this doesn't actually happen very often unless you lead them to a patch of iciness like I just did, but it's somewhat hard to avoid this maneuver unless you use your shield. The trick to beating them is to Z-target them and then use your shield to get close, and then stabbing attacks will usually end up getting yourself hurt because they'll just jump right over your sword, while using vertical downward slashes, so you Z-target and then just use your slasher sword without holding forward. This will usually hit them while they're jumping. Up ahead, there are several snow boulders that are conveniently in a line blocking your path. Don't you just hate it when that happens? Like, perhaps some of the Gorons were having fun, though more likely it was the Skull Kid. Or Mother Nature could just hate us altogether. Either way, you want to blast through them and continue along until you reach the mountain village. I'm gonna be honest here, people, I don't really understand how this is a village at all. There's only one building. Oh well. You'll meet your first Goron up here on a high ledge nearby, and the Gorons are a race of rock-eating people that live in volcanic areas where the stones are very nutritious. That being said, the winter that has befallen Snowhead is a really big deal, and this fella in particular is starving to the point of being unable to move. He is craving his favorite meal, something hard and tough, to eat before he dies. As sad as that is, we will be able to help him later, so just keep that description in mind because we will be searching for his favorite meal. Now in the northwest corner of this area there is a path leading to Snowhead itself, but right next to that is the owl statue, so slash it with your sword to wake it up, and now we can teleport to Mountain Village whenever we like. You want to turn around and run the opposite corner to reach the road to Goron Village. In this next area, there are several enemies that will constantly reappear. They come back every time you enter the area, so there's not really much point in killing them. You can kill them if you want to, but for the most part, you can just run past them. Now, there are several islands throughout this area, and there are bridges that connect them. Our goal is to go across the bridges to reach the next area, but if you fall down at any point and you slip down, you'll have to take the ramp to get back up to the first part and start going across the bridges again. At the first island, you'll meet a new enemy called a White Wolfos. There have been a few variations of this enemy in different Zelda games, but this style is the most humanoid of them all, and they use Z-targeting methods to attack you. They stand upright and they attack with vicious claws. You want to Z-target them and use your shield to get close. It's vulnerable as it tries to attack you, so you can either hit it just before or just after it takes a swipe at you. And if you hit its front side, you'll only do a little bit of damage, but as Tattle hints, the trick is to taunt it into attacking, back up, and then hit its tender backside. After you defeat it, run forward, and you'll see Tingle floating around up here. You want to shoot him down with an arrow, and then purchase the map of Snowhead for 20 rupees. At the second big island, there's another White Wolfos. Now you can run past this canine fiend if you like, but I'm going to show you a trick that you can use to defeat them. You want to taunt it into attacking and then hit its tender backside. If you plan it out well, you can actually use a jump attack on its back to kill it in a single hit. So with that, run forward and enter the Goron Village. Now the first building you come to is the Goron Shrine, which is an important location for this chapter. We'll be returning here repeatedly, but for now you can enter by speaking with the Goron just above the entrance if you like. He'll pound the ground to open the door, and if you would want to save time, you can actually go in there and speak with the crying baby Goron now, since we'll have to do that at some point, and I'm actually going to do it a little later so that all that stuff is all together and all at once, so I don't confuse people, referencing things that I did several videos ago. I try to avoid that as much as possible. Anyway, you can go inside and chat with the baby Goron if you like, otherwise just continue on to the far east, where you get a pleasant view of the Grey Abyss. Yay! You can speak with the Gorons around the village, but they'll just explain that everything is too cold, so they're staying indoors. Off in the distance you can see the Lone Peak Shrine, and as you get close to the ledge though, the owl who is perching nearby will begin harassing you again. He's not as unwelcome as he was in Ocarina of Time. Nintendo really made him far more useful this time around. He doesn't really say much that's important until the end though. Once he's done talking and you have agreed to follow him, he'll steadily fly towards the shrine, dropping feathers as he goes. The poor guy's molting in the middle of winter. But he's very precise in his shedding though, leaving them on invisible platforms for us. So thoughtful. Unfortunately, his feathers have a half-life of about 5 seconds once they touch something solid, so you're going to have to be quick. The darn things disappear into thin air. Now the feathers mark the locations of invisible, icy platforms that you have to jump along. They zigzag back and forth, and you'll have to account for how slippery these platforms are. I recommend against using the bunny hood for these jumps, since it will make it a little harder, because you'll move really fast and jump really far, and probably jump over the platforms, or you'll overcorrect and then make yourself fall into the abyss. Not that I've done that, of course. I mean, who do you think I am? Now, if you take too long and the feathers disappear, or you fall down, you're going to have to leave the area or enter a building and then return to make the owl appear again, so that you can try again. Now, once you do make it to the far side, then he will congratulate you on your courageousness at trusting the unseen. As long as you don't have any invisible friends that we don't know about, you should be just fine. Once he's done chortling, you want to enter the mystical floating shrine cave of awesomeness. I sure wish I had one. So inside, there are several large boulders that are just begging to be explodified. So once you have satisfied that urgent craving, you want to open the large chest in the center to find... wait for it, dun, da, 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 the Lens of Truth. Now unfortunately, you aren't able to burn holes through your enemies with this thing using sunlight. Aww. But you are able to use this to see invisible stuff. Now naturally, this cave has some invisible things to experiment with. I mean, what else would you expect to find in a floating shrine, right? Now, place the Lens of Truth on a C button and begin using it to see a circle of truth in the center of your screen. I don't know what else you'd call it. The red stuff is normal vision, just red, assuming you normally see red, of course. You want to use the lens to see the invisible scutula, and then kill it with your sword, or hit it with an arrow, and then you can open the chest that it was guarding to find a red rupee inside. Not too shabby, but the regular chest nearby has 50 rupees. Now, wouldn't it make more sense to have the magical invisible one guarded by an enemy have more money? But that's all we had to do here, so just stock up on magic and bombs that are found in the bushes here, and then run outside. So once you leave the Lone Peak Shrine, you want to use the Lens of Truth to discover that there's actually some invisible icy blocks, and they look sort of like ice cubes that float. Now once you're done scratching your head, you want to carefully jump across them and get back to solid ground. There's a floating Goron here that you can only see while using the Lens of Truth. You want to chat with him, and he'll be surprised, and then ask you to follow after him. He then floats off, leaving a trail of glitter in his wake. So once you regain control, you can actually stop using Lens of Truth if you like and simply follow his shadow, which somehow still shows up. Wouldn't that technically not be a shadow if there was anything... I don't know, there's nothing to block the light, so why is there a shadow? But I guess I'm not an expert on invisible people, though, so perhaps I shouldn't think it odd. Anyway, the next few scenes are simply us following him, but you don't technically have to do this. You can simply skip ahead to our destination. It's kind of a little tidbit that I'm sure most of you didn't realize. You can just skip ahead to where this Goron is leading us, and then he'll already be there. Now, if you've already played this game or frankly don't care about this, you can go ahead and warp to Mountain Village and skip ahead in the video to a bit to when I arrive there and start climbing the wall. Now, for the sake of the walkthrough, though, I will show everything, so I'm going to be following our levitating companion. This is actually optional, but it kind of fulfills some of the storyline, I guess. Once the Goron stops at the exit, you'll have to use the Lens of Truth while standing next to him in order to make him progress. You want to follow him back to the road to Goron Village, and he'll be waiting for you at the base of the bridge. You want to stand next to him and use the lens again to get him to start moving, and you can ignore the enemies here since they just reappear every time you enter the area. Now, if you do decide to kill the Wolfos in particular, just remember that you can kill them by using a jump attack on their tail, and it will kill them in a single hit. Now, you only have to use the Lens of Truth when the Goron is stopped in order to make him progress, but you can also hit the C button repeatedly. If you need to use the lens, you can hit the C button over and over again in order to turn on and turn off the Lens of Truth, and this will, for that split second while it's activating, it doesn't actually use any magic. So in this way, you can actually use the Lens of Truth without it costing any magic. So it is a little annoying, though, because you're constantly pressing the button, and it also sounds really stupid. But anyway, it's just a little tip for you, so if you're running low on magic, then you can just hit the button repeatedly to use the Lens of Truth without it costing any magic. So now we're back in Mountain Village. You want to use the Lens of Truth while standing next to the shadow to see the Goron and then get him moving again. He'll float over to the water where he has another checkpoint, and when you're standing next to him or you're looking in his direction while using the Lens of Truth, then he'll start floating upwards and go to the top of the cliff. And as you look towards it, you'll see that it has a bunch of invisible ladders that cover it, so they're just covered with a light layer of snow apparently. But you can now use these to climb up and follow the Goron spirit. Now first, though, we're going to have to cross the water here, and there are some icebergs to aid us, but they're a little far apart, and there are some smaller icebergs that circle around the larger ones on the left and the right, and you can use them, but they're slippery and you might wind up falling in the water in the attempt, and you can use them to reach the far platform, but I have a better alternative. You can put on the Deku Mask and use it to hop across the water, and it makes this task much easier, and you'll be able to get to the far side without any problem at all. So, pretty cool little tip for you. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can press the C button for it, you can press it repeatedly to turn on and off over and over and over the Lens of Truth, and this will make it so it costs no magic. That's not a big deal, though, since there's more magic at the top, so I wouldn't worry about it. So the ladders form a maze of sorts, and you probably looked at it from below to kind of get an idea of where to go, but I have it shown on the left, and the correct path is right, left, right. Once you get to the top, if you don't see the Goron, you'll have to look down while using the Lens of Truth, and it will make him start floating up here. He's at that checkpoint at the base of the water, but it actually, honestly, doesn't matter, because as soon as you enter the shrine up here, he'll just be there. So because of this, you don't actually have to follow him at all, actually. You can simply warp to Mountain Village, and then climb up the wall, as I explained earlier. So you want to slash the snowballs up here to restore your magic, and then speak with the Goron out here if you like to discover what's going on. He explains that this is the grave of the great hero, and that he and his brother came up here to put the memorial stone in place. The way back is filled with snow now, so they got stuck up here, and his brother is now a popsicle, so that's no good. They're both pretty much doomed, and he does make an interesting comment that you should keep in mind for later. He says that they accidentally blocked off the hot spring beneath the grave. That bit of information will come in handy in a moment, so just log that away in your memory for now, and we will make use of it here in the next video. Once he's done talking, you want to use the Lens of Truth to make the floating Goron go inside if you want. As I explained, he's already in there once you enter. But then just join me for the next video, and we will talk with the spirit inside the grave.